All right, today we're doing something a little different. Instead of an article or a data set, we're going to unpack the entire powerful argument hidden inside just one single image.
So this is it. This is our entire source for today's explainer. I'm not kidding. Every single idea we're going to explore comes straight from the title, the subtitle, and the imagery on this one book cover. And honestly, it's kind of a masterclass in how to make a huge argument before you even turn a single page. Right off the bat, this cover hits you with a really provocative question, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into. What if everything we think of as normal is actually, well, fundamentally flawed? What if the very culture we all participate in, the one we call normal, is actually the root cause of so much of our suffering? Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the title itself, the myth of normal. Then we're going to deconstruct that word, normal. From there, we'll dive into the connection it makes between culture, trauma, and illness. We'll touch on the promise of healing, and then wrap it all up with the really radical reframe this whole thing is pointing to. All right, first things first. Let's tackle that title head on. You know, it's not something gentle like the problem with normal or rethinking normal. No, this is a direct, powerful challenge. I mean, just look at those four words. A myth, right? A myth is a widely held belief that is, well, false. So by calling normal a myth, the cover is making a huge claim here. It's saying that the way we live, the things we accept as standard, are all based on a fiction. And that just forces you to stop and question something you probably never even think twice about. So, to really get why calling it a myth is so disruptive, we have to get on the same page. What does normal even mean in the first place? Just take a second and think about this word. We use it all the time, right? Oh, it was just a normal day at work. Or, whoa, that's not normal. It's this benchmark we use for everything, kind of like a yardstick for our lives and our health. But what's the actual dictionary definition? Okay, here's the standard definition. Being normal is all about conforming. It's about fitting into this template of what's considered usual or typical or expected. The implication is there's this baseline for health and behavior, and we should all be aiming for it. And this is where things get interesting. The cover is basically arguing that the very standard we're all trying to live up to, that's the problem. It's a total contradiction. So, okay, if normal is a myth, then what's the reality? Well, the subtitle starts to give us some clues. Let's shift our focus down a bit to the line right under the main title, because this is where the cover really starts to lay out its case. It's connecting some really powerful ideas into a kind of logical chain. So the subtitle gives us these four key concepts. We've got toxic culture, trauma, illness, and healing. But here's the thing, the cover isn't just randomly listing them. The way they're arranged implies a really specific cause and effect relationship. And this is the argument in a nutshell. The cover is proposing a clear progression, a domino effect. Step 1, it starts with our environment, what it calls a toxic culture. Step 2, this toxic environment isn't passive. It actively creates trauma. And then, step 3, that trauma shows up in our bodies and minds as illness. Just think about that for a second. By putting trauma and illness right next to each other, the cover is suggesting something huge. It's saying that maybe a lot of our diseases, both mental and physical, aren't just some random genetic bad luck. What if they're actually the body's logical response to traumatic experiences that come from our culture itself? But the argument doesn't just leave us there, with illness. The cover presents one final, absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle, and it's positioned as the way out of this whole mess. Healing. It's the hopeful counterpoint to that whole chain of toxicity we just walked through. And the cover seems to be suggesting that this isn't just about treatment or curing symptoms. No, it's something way, way deeper. So, if you follow the logic, right? If illness comes from trauma and trauma comes from a toxic culture, then real healing can't just be about masking the symptoms. Following the cover's own logic, you have to work your way back up that chain. You have to address the trauma, and ultimately, you have to confront the toxic culture that started it all. Okay, so let's put all these pieces together. When you connect all the dots, you start to see that this cover, it's doing more than just trying to sell a book. It's proposing a complete and pretty radical reframing of how we think about health and sickness. So here it is, the core idea. The standard way we look at it is that illness is a personal problem, right? You got unlucky, a deviation from the normal healthy state. But the cover's view, it flips that completely on its head. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, sickness isn't an abnormal response to a normal society.
Maybe it's a completely normal response to an abnormal, toxic one. And wow, that changes everything. So now, when you look at that full subtitle again, it's not just a list of words anymore, is it? You can see it for what it is, a complete thesis statement. It's both a diagnosis of our society and a prescription for how to start healing. I mean, that's an entire worldview right there in just 9 words. And all of this leaves us with a huge, lingering question. If our culture's very definition of normal is the thing that's making us sick, then what does it actually mean to be healthy? Is being well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society really something to be proud of? So the cover does an amazing job of raising the question, but it doesn't pretend to have all the answers. Our source today, just this one single image, has laid out a massive problem in a really brilliant way. The solution, it seems, well, that's a conversation that maybe we all need to start having. Thanks so much for joining me for this